Welcome to the Fancy Comma YouTube. Today I'm joined by Dr. Jessica Steier. She's a public health scientist and health services researcher with expertise in health policy evaluation. She's the CEO of Vital Statistics Consulting, a data science consultancy, and founder and co-host of Unbiased Science, a science communication brand. She previously served as a senior health policy consultant at the Lewin Group, working primarily on large state and federal health policy evaluations. Prior to that, she was the inaugural research coordinator of Hofstra University's Department of Physician Assistant Studies, where she designed the master's degree curriculum, conducted research with clinicians and healthcare delivery organizations to inform evidence-based change and quality improvement, and perform program evaluations and needs assessments. She consulted for the NYC and Nassau County Departments of Health. Welcome, Dr. Steier. So how did you, at first, I should say, I'm a huge fan of the Unbiased Science podcast and its LinkedIn. I follow it a lot. I read it a lot and I'm always impressed. It's amazing. Like, I wish I could produce that much science communication at scale. So I'm wondering, and especially in the pandemic, it's been like probably literally a lifesaver. So, how did you start the Unbiased Science podcast?
First, thank you so much for your kind words, your support, and for following along. So how did we get started? So Andrea and I, Dr. Andrea Love is my co-host on Unbiased Science. So we went to college together. We went to Stony Brook University for undergrad for two very different scientific careers, right? So I'm a public health data scientist and Andrea is an immunologist and microbiologist. So we kept in touch over the years, and we primarily shared our frustration with people about vaccine misinformation in particular. And then I became a mom in 2016, and I joined these mom groups or parent groups on social media. And I was horrified by the misinformation that I saw on there, and people basically saying, don't get your kids vaccinated, don't give antibiotics to your kids, like just everything that goes against what we know as scientists, right? And so Andrea and we bonded over that. And then COVID happened, and we were like, we need to do something about this because the misinformation coming out about COVID was overwhelming. People didn't know what to believe, what to trust, what to do. Everyone was super scared. And so we were doing these individual Instagram Live and Facebook Live events for our friends and family. And then we were like, well, why don't we do these together? So we started doing these joint events together, and people were commenting on our chemistry and our dynamic, and the fact that we have different but complementary scientific expertise. And so together we put out very comprehensive information. And so we decided to formalize our partnership, and we launched the Unbiased Science podcast.
That is awesome. So you have a lot more followers than the Fancy Comma YouTube. What's it like to have so many followers?
It's so funny. So across channels, I think we have something like 400 something thousand followers. And it's really overwhelming at times to think, wow, there are 400,000 pairs of eyes, on us at all times. And people from all around the world, different backgrounds, different countries, different cultures. And in the very beginning, I can't speak for Andrea, but I was very self-conscious. I felt like, oh my gosh, are they judging what I'm saying or how I'm saying it? And I know I could be quirky. I'm not for everyone. My communication style isn't going to be for everyone. But I've come to realize that what we're doing is so beneficial, honestly, that outweighs any anxiety that I feel about having so many eyes on me. So it's sort of like I've kind of conditioned myself, or I've trained myself to get through that anxiety and feeling self-conscious and focusing on our mission, which is to improve science literacy and educate people.
That's great, because I think with great power, it's like that Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think Spider-Man's also from New York. He's from Brooklyn. I don't know. That's also New York City.
That's where I'm from.
So that's awesome, because I watch a lot of Spider-Man. I was tutoring a kid this summer, and he really likes Spider-Man. So I learned about Spider-Man, and now I watch Spider-Man. And so
I love it.
He's also a journalist or something. So, but anyway, with great power comes great responsibility. That's one of my driving mantras. And I think will never have 400,000 followers, but that is a huge responsibility. I mean, It is and it isn't. It's like kind of probably really fun. So have you seen tangible effects of your work out there helping people? That must be really rewarding.
It's the single most rewarding thing. It makes me so proud to be doing this work. But yes, we do. We get messages all the time from folks. In the beginning, it was mainly about the vaccines, in particular COVID vaccines, and making people feel comfortable. Debunking a lot of the myths and misconceptions about the COVID vaccines, like it alters your DNA, or all the myths that were swirling. So hearing people say, I would have never been vaccinated, but I read your content and I made the decision to get vaccinated. We also get messages all the time about other topics that we tackle, like chronic Lyme disease, which is not an actual medical diagnosis. Lyme disease is an acute bacterial infection. And unfortunately, there's this myth that Lyme disease can be chronic. And there are people who suffer with these chronic illnesses, and they get this diagnosis, but it's a misdiagnosis. So we have people who say, "Oh, I heard that I had chronic Lyme, so I was taking X, Y, and Z antibiotics for a decade, and nothing happened." And then we let them know, no, this is not a real diagnosis, but here are all the things that sometimes get misdiagnosed as chronic Lyme. And so, really empowering people and educating them. And a lot of people in particular who suffer from these chronic illnesses are very easy prey for people who are trying to, sell them products or tinctures or supplements or whatever it is, so really empowering people in that way. And then also, like just today, we got a bunch of messages. We've done a lot of content about organic foods and how organic is not superior to conventional. People often feel a lot of shame for not being able to afford organic produce. And, there's really no need to spend more money for organic produce. It's nutritionally the same as organic produce. Organic produce also uses pesticides, which is a common misconception, is that it doesn't. So hearing people say that we've alleviated a lot of their stress or anxiety around their food buying patterns has also been really, really good to hear.
That is great. So, okay, how does one stay unbiased as a scientist?
So it's tough to be fully unbiased, totally unbiased, right? Because we're human beings, and we're all have biases, some that we're not even aware of. But in the context of science, bias takes on a very specific meaning. And so it's in basically the careful design of research studies, making sure that you're properly controlling for confounding variables, that your study sample is representative of the larger population. And so when we're constantly consuming research and using our skill sets as scientists, we're critically appraising, okay, this is a credible source of information. This study is valid. This study is reliable. And so we're doing our best to comb through the data and share the best available data, the highest quality data that we've come across. So are we 100% unbiased? No, because that's not possible as human beings. But again, we try to disseminate information on the best available information and data. And in that way, we try to be unbiased.
Along the same lines, politicization can be detrimental to overall science literacy. How have you worked to avoid political polarization in your posts, or is that a goal of Unbiased Science podcast?
It is. Remaining apolitical and dispassionate is a cornerstone of unbiased science, because we don't just want to be an echo chamber. We don't only want to communicate to people who are already like-minded or scientifically literate. So we want to reach folks who maybe are very politically conservative and maybe question or are very skeptical of government agencies. This is we know this, that right? There's a correlation between politics and mistrust of government. And we see it on both sides of the spectrum. So we have, as I just described, people who are super conservative who tend to mistrust government, but then we also have people who are extremely liberal. And among those populations, we see a lot of chemophobia xenophobia, a lot of anti-vax sentiment, a lot of this propagation of like organic or all natural being superior to conventional. So the way that we try to remain apolitical is by not judging people. Like we understand that people come from lots of different backgrounds, both educational, cultural, political, that inform their belief systems. And so we don't want people to feel like we're judging them. We understand that maybe they just haven't been exposed to the right information or credible information. So we leave our judgment at the door, and we want to reach people of all different backgrounds and affiliations and ideologies and all that stuff.
I like that. And I think that you really do reach a lot of different people just by just telling people the truth and breaking stuff down for people that maybe don't have the science background. So then my other question for you as a content creator in this space, not in the space that you're in, but just as a science content creator, how do you get so much content out quickly, done so thoroughly with references? It's honestly mind-boggling to me, and I'm honestly really curious about it personally. Like, do you hire people? Do you do it yourself? Is it a mix of that? Like, your eyes ever glaze over from looking at too many references, trying to unpack this for everyone?
They sure do. So I'm going to tell you right now that I don't have the best advice on this, because I'm still figuring out how to do it in a way that's healthy. Because Andrea and I, first of all, it's great to have a partner in Andrea, and the fact that we have such complementary skill sets allows us to cover a lot of ground in partnership. So that's the first thing. But we honestly, like, we'll set alarms on our phones. Reminder to shower, reminder to eat food. Like, we're often sacrificing our health and well-being for this goal of producing content through the podcast. So right now, I mean, our goal is to honestly figure out a way to fund our efforts and make this sustainable so that we can hire a team. We do have a handful of volunteers who are wonderful, but like 99% of the content Andrea and I are working on our own. But we do have, we outsource audio editing. We do have an editor who does that for the podcast. We have a couple of incredible graphic design volunteers who will help us at least polish up posts that we've worked on. But yeah, I mean, we're just constantly consuming information. And I think that we both, we have very strong work ethic, honestly, sometimes to our own detriment, because, we sacrifice ourselves. But yeah, it's definitely a Herculean effort. That is for sure.
Yeah, it's sad in a way to hear that you guys have to be reminded to eat, but isn't that just science communication? Like, no one else is doing it. There's not an infrastructure for it. Wouldn't it be great if there was an infrastructure, maybe government supported infrastructure for science communication?
It would be. And honestly, Shiva, I mean, we're working towards that. We have some big ideas that we're hoping to get off the ground in 2024 to create a real infrastructure for this. And I mean, you mentioned government, and that's where my mind goes at first too. But then that has its own drawbacks, because you have people who just inherently distrust the government, right? So it's like, how do you remain impartial in the eyes of the public? Even though we know that even if it's government or industry, whatever it is, no one can ever get us to say anything that isn't supported by actual scientific data. So much of it is optics and public perception. But yes, we absolutely need to figure out a way to create infrastructure for this type of work.
What are Unbiased Science podcasts and affiliated LinkedIn and everything's guiding principles? Well, Unbiased Science podcast, even though the LinkedIn isn't technically a podcast, but that's what I read because I don't have time for podcasts, because I'm a LinkedIn reader. But what are
Yep.
Unbiased Science podcasts guiding principles as a media source?
So I would say the number one thing that jumps out at me when I hear that question is, we want to empower people. We want people to be better consumers of science information. There is so much crap out there, pardon my language, but there's so much misinformation swirling, especially on social media. That just really lit a fire, unfortunately, of misinformation and mistrust in science. And we want people to be able to read content and say, this doesn't pass the smell test. Something is not right about this. This sounds like misinformation. So we're constantly trying to arm people with the skill set to do that. We also, there's this phrase, do your research, do your research. We want to remind people that there are actual researchers and scientists like us who have trained and studied for so many years to be actual experts on certain matters. And now this doesn't mean that we're better than anyone, but it makes us experts on certain scientific matters, right? That are in the scope of our area of expertise. And so just like if I have a leaky faucet, I'm going to call a plumber. If I want to build a house, I'm going to call an architect. I don't have that skill set. So when it comes to scientific matters, we want people to figure out who is trustworthy, have a source of information that they can rely on for credible information. And we hope to be that source for people.
Well, I can say that you guys are definitely that source for me because I'll read anything you guys post without even doing the like scientist kind of criticism check that I don't know if you do this, but like when you read something, you're like, I have to check the sources. But for Unbiased SciPod, I mean, it has the sources. Like you always click and read the sources. And that's why I'm literally just in awe of Unbiased Science podcast. I just feel like it's amazing. And I wish that everyone could like have that like in their newspaper every day. Like I don't think that's really possible, but something like that would be so just foundational for American society. Like I feel like we everyone needs critical thinking skills, and you guys kind of like espouse that so well, and I just love that. So thank you so much for being on our podcast or on our YouTube, and good luck with all the different things you're doing right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, really. It was great to talk with you, and good luck with everything that you're doing as well.
Thanks.